When he opened the third seal, third living creature says, come and see. Again, he's talking to the horse. And a black horse came, and he had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, listen to this. A quart of wheat for a day's work. Denarius was a day's work back in Roman days. An entire day's work. 12 hours, folks. And what is this right here? What is this quart of wheat? Back in Roman days, back in the first century, what did that mean? That means it was enough to feed one person for an entire day's wage. How in the world are people going to feed themselves and their families? Talk about inflation. You haven't seen anything yet. And this is exactly what's going to happen. Food rationing, if you can find it. And 3 quarts of barley. Now, here's a distinction. The wheat during the days of the Romans was what the rich people ate. The poor people got their stuff from barley. So they got the cheaper stuff to make their breads and things and cakes. And they too had to give up a day's wage, a day of labor to get even the cheapest stuff. And do not hurt the oil and the wine. The super rich, the people in political power, they're going to be thieves just like they are today, but on a much greater scale. They're going to live luxuriously. That's what the oil and the wine is about. You don't find that over in the slums, friends. Nobody's taking a wine glass and tipping their finger. No, friend. This is your rich and famous and your politicians who have control of the money. And in this case, it's going to be the 10 horns and the beast and the false prophet and all those folks that support the political structure during that day. So that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's what Matthew says, right? So here you have famine. Here's your scarcity of food. Here's your wars and rumors of wars. And here, when the Antichrist comes, why don't you see sort of the deception? Because when he comes, the first thing he does, he brings in peace between Israel and her neighbors. Then he allows them to rebuild the temple. When they rebuild the temple, they disarm. And the Antichrist take over protection and protecting Israel. That's everything that happens up here, which leads to this down here. All right, let's go back to Matthew and do that comparison again. All right, so we see, don't be deceived. There's your religious component and the peace that comes. You're going to hear the wars. So here's seal number 1, 4 and 5. Seal 1 with the Antichrist. 6 and 7, seal number 2 with the wars and rumors of wars. And then the famines being seal number 3. And then we get to seal number 4 because of the wars. Not only does famine comes, but as a result of wars and famines, something else follows that. Now, let's go and look at the chart. So we see here Peace is taken away. Then we see here a measure of barley and wheat for a day's wage, and don't hurt the rich stuff. So there's your famines. In the fourth seal, what do we see? We started off with famine. That brings with it, with the famine and the wars, that brings pestilence. So when he talks about this horse, it's more of a pale horse, a greenish type horse, and not a white or a light tan brown. It's really this gangrene type looking ugly horse, right? And he brings with it war. He brings with it, so it has your wars. He brings with it hunger. There's your famine and deadly plagues. That's what pestilence means. Okay? It's deadly plagues. It's essentially plagues and viruses. This is stuff that comes as a result of the disease and lack of health care that's going to go through uh, ravaged nations from wars. Again, I'll give you the example of Ukraine, the areas where they're being bombed today. Or you think they're getting medical care? No, man, not the kind of medical care you're getting right now. Over in Gaza, you think there's any hospital standing? No. Can they get medical care? Not in Gaza. So think about that worldwide. Where would you go? I mean, folks, if a hospital's shut down in the United States or in your country where you are, if they shut down, what kind of health care you think you're going to get? They're going to be shut down everywhere. And then the beast isn't lions and tigers and bears. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about stuff like the bubonic plague. And he says earthquake. So the pestilence includes viruses. It also includes plagues. That's the beast. Okay, rats and stuff that comes as a result of all the filth from people not being buried, from the diseases that's going to be spread, and all these different things that's going to happen in the world during that time. What does God say about those things, though? It's only the beginning. It is just getting started. So now you're at the 3.5 year period. You're here. Okay. When you look at the chart, you're right here in this segment of the 7 years, right here. And all that stuff is happening. Now look at what he says over here in Revelation. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 6. Look at what happens right here. So you see this widespread death, okay? When he opened the fourth seal, I heard a voice of the fourth living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale, basically pale is green or greenish horse. And the name of him who sat on it was Death. And Hades, that is the grave, followed with him. And power was given to them, death in the grave, over 1/4 of the population of the earth. So in the first 3.5 years, let's just throw a number out there. Let's say there's 10 billion people. 1/4 of the 10 are going to die in 3.5 years. Friend, you need to go and look up how many people die a year. And people won't be having babies. So there won't be any replacement going on. Think about that. No replacement of the population because of all the carnage that's happening. 1/4 of everybody is going to die. They're going to be killed with the wars. They're going to be killed with the famines. They're going to be killed with the pestilence. And they're going to be killed with the plagues. Friend, it's going to be really, really bad. A total nightmare. But in this same period of time, what starts happening? The next seal is the fifth seal. What's the Antichrist now doing? The one world religion has taken over. So the false prophet is doing his thing. He's taken over this one world religion. Okay? Now, he's not the leader of it, like per se, the Pope is over the Roman Catholic Church. He won't be the leader over it. But they're sort of going to tuck in underneath him, and he's going to be an overseer. So you have the mystery Babylon, the false religion, and then so it's basically split up in two. Let's go to the whiteboard. The way it's going to work, according to the scriptures, and you say, how do you know that? Well, because in the end, the false religion is taken out first, but the false prophet is still there. So the way it's going to work is you're going to have Antichrist, you have the beast, and you're going to have his sidekick. So these two are sort of like Batman and Robin, right? So you're going to have the false prophet. Then over here, you're going to have the 10 kings or the 10 kingdoms that the Antichrist is going to rule over, right? So he's going to rule over these 10 kingdoms. But then on the other side, you have Mystery Babylon. She's the false religion, where all the religions of the world come together. So when this happens, what's going to happen? God is going to have, in the midst of all of this 144,000 Jews going around being witnesses. And from there, you're going to have some believers. Okay? You're going to have some believers. And you got two distinct group of believers. You're going to have a Jews and you're going to have Gentile believers. Over in this time, the Jew and Gentile are separate. Why? Because that's the way they were under the law. Remember, we've reverted back to the 70th week. So this time period is now going back under the law. It's part of the punishment of Israel, the 70th week. All right. So the Jew and Gentile is separated, but they're still all believers, and they get saved the same way. So the beast sort of rules over the kingdoms, and the false prophet sort of rules over the false religion. But remember what we said when we looked at it. False prophets are associated with Israel. This guy right here is going to be a Jew. The Muslims and the Jews are always fighting. Do you really believe that the Muslims are going to allow somebody outside of a Muslim to make peace with the Jews? No. This guy here is going to be a Muslim. The Antichrist. All right, so we have these 10 kingdoms. Now in Revelation chapter 17, these kingdoms right here in Revelation chapter 17, they destroy the false church. That's what Revelation chapter 17 says. That these kingdoms kill everyone associated with this false church. That's God's judgment. But they don't do anything to the false prophet. He's still alive. Why? Because he's not the leader of the false church. He's a Jew. So he stays with the false prophet over Israel. And he betrays Israel just like Judas betrayed Jesus Christ. All right. So that's what happens here. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You have to fit it from a Jewish perspective under the law. And if you do that, then you're going to come to the same conclusion. Why? Because that's the way it's written. So I didn't get some revelation, some voice or something speaking to me. No, just read the book. And that's the way the book presents it. So